We call it people technology.
One last afternoon game in the Indian Premier League 2021. We're looking ahead to the action between Punjab Kings and Chennai Super Kings on Maruti Suzuki presents ESPN Cricket for T20 timeout. Ian Bishop with one last afternoon encounter to join us for, and Gautam Gambhir with him. Bish has got a smile on his face. He knows the IPL is coming to an end. Now, come on, Bish. This is the business end. And stranger things have happened in the tournament, but Punjab Kings shouldn't be going through, surely. Chennai Super Kings is short of a top two finish. What are we looking forward to today, Bish?
I want to see what how Chennai approach this game, the
Mhm.
resources they put on the park. I think that's going to be the critical thing. They had a couple of slip-ups heading into the most important phase. So I know MS Dhoni and anyone who's a professional, really, you want to get back on track. You want to be resounding. I want to see if what the squad, if Robin Uthappa gets another game, then Robin Uthappa has to score some runs because Suresh Ryan has been absent of it.
Yeah, it's what an interesting sort of feel we've got of the Chennai Super Kings, Gotti. For a large part of this IPL, it looked like without doing anything extraordinary, they were comfortable in the top two. Last two games suddenly remind us of how this team also is vulnerable, is beatable. What are they trying to get out of this last league game?
Look, every team is vulnerable. There is no such
Hmm.
team called unbeatables ever in sport, to be honest. It's just the
Yeah.
belief, whether the belief is there to in the opposition or in your camp to actually go on to defeat the opposition. And again, I think they've just not played good cricket. And surprisingly, Rajasthan Royal, that game was so one-sided when they were chasing 190. I thought that that's going to be a good game, but then it and they made it look so one-sided. Probably there are chinks in the armor, especially in the bowling lineup. They've got some issues when it comes to their bowling, CSK, and plus their honestly, plus the middle order as well. Apart from Ambati Raidu, not a lot of people have actually contributed in the middle order. Yes, Jadeja has played some cameos. Dwayne Bravo's played one cameo, but there is vulnerability there, and I'm sure opposition or whoever plays them, probably in the playoff, will look to target that vulnerability.
Well, for what it's worth, Punjab have won this toss. They're going to have a bowl first in a season that's not yet mathematically over for them. They need a lot of results to go their way, but they're still not officially out of this. So KL Rahul's won the toss. What he would want, if you're a Punjab Kings fan, you want them to first pick up the points against Chennai, try and get that net run rate as high as possible. You then want Rajasthan to beat Kolkata. You want Hyderabad to beat Mumbai to make sure there's a lock on 12 points for four teams, and then that Punjab's net run rate somehow goes above Kolkata's if that team loses too. So there's so many things that they want. So let's leave that for later for the time being. It's unlikely as it may seem. We thought the Punjab Kings might, for a change, go into this game with no changes. No, they're not going to do that. That's the Punjab Kings. They made one change. Chris Jordan has come in for Nicholas Puran. So it looks like the patience has run out with Puran in a game, like we said, Bish, which is where they're still not technically out of it. You want to try and play your best team, but they've swapped an outright batter for an outright bowler. Try and make sense of that.
No, well, okay, let me stay
Sorry.
away from that one. Okay, you're a troublemaker. Um, Chris Jordan, I thought might have personally, I thought he would have gotten a game
Mm.
from maybe two or three stops ago because he can give you death bowling, he can give you a few runs. They went initially with their new Australian import. So, look, I will never complain to see Chris get a game because I thought even last season he had
Mm.
a poor run, and he came back, and when he should have gotten a few more games, he didn't. So it's been kind of a usage of him that I don't quite get.
Mm. Three games, though, in the India leg. Nothing since the UAE leg has begun, Gautam, and now he comes in to replace an outright batter. Can you make sense of it?
Look, they've only gone with three overseas players. That's again a massive surprise for me. They've got Markram, Chris Jordan, and Moses. Is it? Yeah, exactly. So they've got three overseas players. They've got Sarfaraz. They've retained actually Sarfaraz. And
Yes.
look again. I think you've given Nicholas Puran such a long run. You should have ended up giving him another game, especially against a
Mm.
bowling lineup like CSK. They're anyways under pressure since last two games, and probably you've given someone such a long row. Why not just give him one more game? And going in with three overseas, probably overseas players, just does not feel that good because you've invested a lot in Nicholas Puran. I know he hasn't delivered at all, and
Hmm.
that's been really really upsetting because he's got such a lot of talent. In fact, he's an all-out match winner. He's going to be a superstar, hopefully in the making in future as well. The kind of talent he has, probably I would have given him another game because anyways, you can't make it to the playoff. You like you mentioned that technically they're not out of the playoff, but
Yeah.
practically they are, to be honest.
Yeah.
So probably you should have given him another go.
Does this
I don't like this theory of going with three overseas players unless and until it's a wicket where it's gripping, it's a rank turner, or you want to go with an Indian spinner.
does this in some way sum up the Punjab season, Gautam? That up until their last league game, they weren't quite sure what their best playing 11 was.
Yeah, but then you got to question the management as well. But then again, on the other side, if you see they've shown so much of faith and trust on Nicholas Puran, who hasn't delivered at all. So somewhere down the line, the patience will come off. Probably they could have gone with Fabian Alien. Fabian Allen
Hmm.
is not a bad player. I think he can hit the ball. He can hit a long ball. He can give you one or two overs as well in place of Shah Rukh Khan. In fact, you got to remember, sorry, not Shah Rukh Khan, Sarfaraz. In the first game, you remember, they actually played Fabian Allen as their main batter who could bowl some overs. And he was
Hmm.
actually ahead of Chris Gale. And suddenly he's done nothing and then he's been left out, unless and until he's injured. I would have probably looked at him in this game.
Yeah, they've. I mean, there's this theory that runs around on social media on when a team plays three overseas bish. What does that tell you? Does that tell you, wow, what a great bench strength they've got for Indian players, or does it tell you they've somewhere not been adequate in their auctions or not been good enough in finding replacements? Where would you put that on Punjab? We haven't seen a lot of Fabian Allen. They tried Nathan Ellis for 3 games. They played Adil Rashid just the one game, and they lost Chris Gale in the middle. So do you look at this team and say, oh, okay, they didn't quite have the options, or do you look and say, no, they weren't, they've not made a good enough squad, and therefore they're forced to just play three overseas if Nicholas Puran has bad form.
I think at times you can. We've seen one or two other teams play three overseas, right? If you've got, for example, a star quality domestic, couple of domestic who outweigh the conditions for the overseas import, I can see it's not necessarily a sin in my view to do that. But I do
Hmm.
feel with the Punjab Kings that they've made a couple of purchases initially with a couple of Australian seamers, for example, that didn't quite suit the conditions. It's not that the guys aren't good quality. It just took them a long time to adapt to Indian conditions. And so that could sort of be said maybe about one or two other players. So I don't think it was the greatest auction buys for some
Hmm.
of them. But I do see that there could be cases, for example, with the Mumbai Indians who have high Indian domestic quality, where they could at some point substitute an overseas player, depending on conditions.
Yeah, you know that their
And
auction
Ronald,
strategy in
Ronald,
particular has been a bit
just one thing.
questionable.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
Gautam, please.
you're probably trying to tell everyone that Sarfaraz is better than Nicholas Poole.
Hmm.
If Sarfaraz
No,
has
no,
no, my point is that I know Nicholas
uh-huh.
hasn't delivered at all. That's
Correct,
fair enough.
correct, correct.
And if you had to make this change, you should have made this change probably a couple of games back. Because if you've given someone such a long rope, see again, you want to go in a game saying that this is our best playing 11, and I'm sure with the kind of players there are on the bench, Nicholas is probably one of the best. That's why you've shown so much of trust. Probably this is not the best playing 11 according to me.
Hmm. Okay. Well, it's thematic almost of the Punjab Kings. You know what's going to happen to Puran? He's going to go into the auction, get big money, go somewhere else, and score heaps of runs, especially against Punjab next season. That's how Maxwell does it. So that's what's going to happen. Anyway, Chennai Super Kings. I was curious to see if they make changes, but they don't. Same team says MS Dhoni. From the one that went down just a couple of games back against Delhi Capitals. They've had a couple of defeats now to Rajasthan and Delhi. We're wondering if we'd get to see at least a rest maybe for Dwayne Bravo Bish, whose workload has been quite well managed in this UAE leg. Sam Curran's been ruled out of the tournament. I don't know if Dominic Drakes has yet joined CSK, whether he was available for selection, but they could have made some changes or rested players. They've gone with the same team. I guess in some ways it doesn't surprise you, but would you be a little bit worried that Bravo's going to have about 3 or 4 games in the next week?
Not too much, because I think what he got arrested and he came back for one game, the previous game, right? So he's had a couple of breaks already this season, and I'm assuming that that is just load management rather than niggles or anything like that. So I'm not too concerned about that. I'm glad that they kept faith with Robin Utapa because they needed to see after one game how much more Robin can give them with all his experience. And Gautam is better placed to answer this, I suppose, if you're a Faf and a Ruturaj Gaikwad as batsmen who have been firing, whether you guys want to continue to keep as CSK way. So, look, I'm not too concerned. What I want to see from CSK, as I said before, RK and Gautam, is I want to see a complete game so you get into that playoff situation knowing you're confident and you're firing on all cylinders.
Gautam?
Look, obviously Bish's internet went off, so exactly I don't know
Okay,
what the
that's
question was.
that's
So you can ask me. I'm not trying to evade any question, and I
no,
don't
no,
do
no.
any.
No,
He
no, no,
wanted.
no,
I
no,
know
no,
about
no.
Bish.
The point I was making is that, look, I understand with Bravo, he missed a couple of matches. He came back, then he missed, I think, he came back for the last game. So he's had a little bit of rest here and there. He's missed a couple
Yeah,
of games along the way. So I can understand the CSK ways to continue to have guys firing on all pistons. Josh Hazelwood still there. Deepak Chahar missed a game. He came back last game as well. From a batting perspective, Ruturaj and Faf have carried a good workload this season, successfully scoring runs. Whether a batsman, a top order batsman, wants a rest or whether he just wants to keep taking over so that he can get into your best place to answer that as a top order batsman and opener
yeah,
who's ticking along, whether you want a rest or not.
See, when
yeah.
you're in very
Gautam?
good form, it's a very valid question. When you're in very good form, you want to just keep continue playing. You don't want to take a rest because that's the time where you can make the most out of your form as well, and you want to keep scoring those big runs as well, like how Ruturaj and Faf has done. And probably from Dwayne Bravo's point of view, yes, he's had a break. And if you see, even in the last game, he didn't bat. He only bowled what 2 overs. So see, you
Yes.
can't be that fragile to be honest. I don't like that because if you're playing competitive cricket, if you're playing international cricket, you still haven't retired from international cricket. You're part of the T20 World Cup squad, and yes, obviously your age is catching up. But then till the time you're playing, you got to be probably strong enough to be trying to play all the games, unless there's an injury, unless there's a niggle. So if you talk about the workload management, honestly, Dwayne hadn't had that much of workload management because even in the he got a rest before the previous game, and even in the previous game he didn't bat. He only bowled 2 overs. So probably I would definitely want to see him bowling 4 overs, and because his 4 overs would be very crucial for CSK going forward in the tournament because he started off this like really well for them, and he's probably the death bowler, and that is where they've lagged. Josh Hazelwood is not the best of death bowlers. In fact, they don't have anyone apart from Dwayne Bravo or a little bit of Deepak Chahar. So I'm sure
Yeah.
that MS Dhoni would be looking to use his 4 overs, and probably his 2 or 3 overs in the death because that is where I think this game's going to get decided because now Punjab Kings are chasing.
Yeah, absolutely. And last time, of course, it was only the 18th and the 20th, and Bravo didn't quite seem that he was in the flow, bowling just those last 2 overs. So probably you'd expect something different. But last time we were told Suresh Raina had a bit of a knee niggle, and therefore Robin Uthappa came in. Now let's assume that that knee's recovered. So how does CSK handle that one spot, which you can say Gautam is open? Should you now stick with Uthappa, like Bish said, maybe even give him a game in the playoffs because Raina has looked woefully out of form, at least in this UAE leg. How would you handle
I,
that
I
position?
can't agree more with Bish.
Hmm.
You've given Suresh Raina a long rope. You've got Robin Uthappa. He played one game. Good that you've given him another game. You should probably continue with him
Hmm.
because he's no lesser player than Suresh Raina. He's not a rookie or you're replacing a seasoned campaigner with a rookie. He himself has loads of talent and loads of experience as well. So just now persist with him. And irrespective of how he performs, how he doesn't perform, and plus hopefully he can probably deliver from them because their middle order is still very vulnerable. And whatever I saw of him in the previous game, however many he got 19, looked really comfortable. It wasn't that he
Hmm.
was very uncomfortable like
Yeah.
in on the game with Suresh Raina looked very uncomfortable against Mumbai Indians. So probably Robin Uthappa was far more assured, and sometimes as a captain, you want to go with a player who looks far more assured as compared to someone who's done really well for you in the past.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan will be backing away even if Bish lined up to bowl, you think. But yeah, we know that he has different ways of playing the short ball. You'd go with that though, Bish, that Uthappa is not is I mean it's you're not gonna it's not like a downgrade on Suresh Raina. You can't really say Uthappa and this team makes this team, any weak or a Raina out of it would if you bring Raina in, then this team becomes stronger. So it's fair now to just keep Robin in that position.
No, I endorse everything Gautam said there. Robin, Vijay Hazare earlier this year, I think he averaged 75. Saeed Mushtaq Ali, he averaged early 30s or something. And he, as Gautam said, he did not look out of depth until he played a poor shot to Ravi Ashwin. So I don't think he'll offer you anything less, really. I mean, you just show him confidence unless he does something totally out of the question today. But Robin's very experienced. He knows what this is about, and CSK need as many allies playing well in that middle order.
Okay, so there'll be enough time to talk about CSK. They're still going to be around in the tournament. You think that Punjab Kings won't. So we're going to try and just break down some numbers for them this season, shall we? And we're looking at the impact of their Indian batters, the impact of their overseas batters. Obviously, Rahul and Mayank dominate in terms of the contribution, the percentage of runs that the Punjab Kings have got. We'll just bring up those numbers for you in a moment. That's what we've got. The openers have carried so much of the workload, Gautam. They've scored half the team's runs effectively, 49%. Rest of the batting has been poor. I'm just trying to think of what you take away for Punjab Kings. There's a likely chance the entire team is going to be changed and reshuffled after the next auction. Would you still hang on to Rahul and Mayank? And if you do, then how do you still solve this problem where you're not only having these two guys perform?
So I'll tell you one thing. This is not only a problem with Punjab Kings. This is exactly the situation with CSK as well. If you're going to look at the numbers with CSK, their top two batters have done maximum scoring, and their middle order has been very vulnerable. But let's come back to Punjab Kings. Yes, you would be tempted to probably retain both of them, and the reason is because you've got two outstanding Indian talent, and they can open the batting. And there are very few talented players, probably Indian talent that is there. So if you've got, try and retain them, and plus hopefully you can get Mohammad Shami as well because you need that all-out fast bowler. And Mohammad Shami's had a reasonable second leg of IPL, and he's bowled really well with the new ball and in the death as well. And probably try and build a squad around these three guys. And there is nothing wrong in probably not retaining even one overseas when you've got such a good talent of Indian players. Probably half your job is done on the auction table. Because the biggest challenge what happens on the auction table is about getting the right Indian talent and exciting Indian talent. Unfortunately for Punjab Kings, if you want to look ahead, you've got loads of that. You've got Mayank Agarwal, KL Rahul, and Mohammad Shami still in your scheme of things. You can build a fabulous team. Not everything is lost. Yes, you've had two bad seasons with the kind of squad you had, but you've got to realize that you have probably the best Indian talent, especially white ball talent with Mohammad Shami and KL Rahul and Mayank Agarwal in your kitty. So build that around them.
Bish, it's a funny team, isn't it? Because they've had Maxwell, who you think is the ideal player to bat after two solid Indian batters on top. They've had David Miller in the past. They've had Nicholas Puran, who looked good last season. Somehow it still doesn't seem to click for them as much as you'd like for it to. You've got two solid Indian openers at the top, and yet even though personnel keep changing in the middle, even if you get big money players, you get overseas players, it just doesn't come together.
Well, it hasn't yet, and they've got to search and find out why that is from within the group. Chris Gale has moved away. Puran obviously has had a poor season. So I agree that those two openers, I think we discussed that those two openers will stay. I like Ravi Bishnoi and what he offers. They've got young Ashdeep, who is showing great improvement. And if they want to keep Shami, Gautam suggests they keep Shami, then they've got 4 or 5 guys that they can build around. And it goes back to the auction table. How can you buy smart? Who fits into that culture of the Punjab Kings and where they want to go? Their middle order. Makram has gotten some runs, but he's gotten them at a slow tempo. That hasn't been the answer. Moses Enriquez looks like he can give you more usage than what they're offering him. So it's going to have to be a good auction for them. David Milan is there. He has hardly played. Fabian Allen has hardly played and done himself justice. So all of that needs tuning over.
Yeah,
Ronald, just one. I don't know. That's just an advice whether they want to take it or not take it. The Punjab Kings, but don't ever make this mistake of releasing everyone, because
Hmm.
once you release the player of quality, KL Rahul, Mayank Agarwal, and Mohammad Shami, you might never be able to get them back. So don't make this mistake. Don't make those emotional decisions thinking, oh, we've done nothing in last 2 years. We finished, what, sixth or seventh in last 2 years. So let's just change everything and let's get the new team. That is not how teams are built. Teams are built with patience. Teams are built with faith, and you've got some quality in your squad. So persist with them.
Give me your take on KL Rahul, the captain, Gotti. He would be the most in-demand player if he gets into the auction, hands down, right? If Punjab want to build a team around him, they want him as captain. Do you see him as somebody who's improving as a captain? How do you
Look,
rate
you can't judge a captain. There are many other guys who could be better captains as well.
him?
You've never given Surya Kumar Yadav or, for example, Mayank Agarwal that opportunity. You will never be able to know that how good they could be as leaders. Yeah, build the squad around KL Rahul as a batter. Yes, he's done a reasonably good job. See, again, for me, I think captaincy is all about how your team performs as well. That is very important. That is first part of the leadership. How do you evaluate or how do you judge a leader? You only judge a leader by the performance of the team. There has to be some parameter for a leader as well. For 2 years, obviously, he's looked okay. I'm not going to say that he looked really good. Some of the decisions which he took probably were really good. Some of the decisions were pretty ordinary as well. But then again, he's only going to get better with experience, because captaincy is something you do get mature over a period of time. It's not that for some people it comes naturally. Some people are just born leaders. They just enjoy captaincy. They just enjoy taking the responsibility and just be at the top and just want to control everything. Some people are probably in their character. Some people are just little want their own space and a little shy kind of a people as well, who would want to probably who will learn or will get matured with time. So don't know about KL Rahul because I don't know him personally. Yeah, but whatever I've seen of him, he's got better than what he was last time, and hopefully he'll keep getting better with experiences, because these experience you will never get anywhere else. The kind of close games he's lost, I'm sure he's matured as a person, and these games teaches you a lot as an individual, as a leader as well.
I'm trying to think of
You
how
know
you rate
what?
him tactically, though. Yes, Bishop.
Sorry, you know what the key thing here is to consider as well. There's no doubt they need some changes, right? Some upgrades. There's no doubt about that because they haven't been making the playoffs. But on the other hand, they haven't been that far away in the last couple of seasons, have they? They've had some close games that they haven't been able to cross the line. Had they had maybe one or two more contributions from certain pockets of the team, maybe they would have crossed the line and they would be a playoff team over the last couple of seasons. So those are positives that they can take out of it. That if they just get a few upgrades around that central group that we're talking about, maybe the world is their oyster.
It's interesting you say that. No, they seem like a team that's not far off, and yet many times we think of Punjab as a team that shoots themselves in their own foot. They lose games they should win. They make changes that don't really make sense. If you actually look at this team on paper, even if you look at the Indian bowling, Gautam, it's been standout. It's carried them through Arshdeep Singh, Mohammad Shami. But Bishnoi, they didn't even start with Bishnoi in the UAE. Like they played Adil Rashid. These are the kind of tactical calls you're trying to think of and think, where does the problem lie? Does it lie with personnel or does it lie with management and leadership more?
You're always wiser after the event.
Yep.
Yes, and Ravi Bishnoi looks a fabulous bowler. All I want to see from Ravi Bishnoi is if he can start taking the ball away from the right hander. He doesn't need to take the ball.
Yes,
He doesn't need to take the ball
yes.
big. He doesn't need to spin the leg break really big. It's just about probably taking it little away from the right hander, and he's going to be much more dangerous because he's got all the attributes of probably troubling the best in the world. I'm not going to compare him to Rashid Khan, but Rashid doesn't spin the ball that big. How successful is he? And he's got an amazing googly. So probably he needs to come back the next season and try and be better and try to have the ball that's going away from the right hander. Arshdeep has been phenomenal. A young boy who hasn't played any international cricket, only played first class cricket, both some really tough overs. I judge a player only by scoring those tough runs and bowling those tough overs, and how he manages himself. Bowling in the death, bowling against the best, bowling against, for example, Dinesh Karthik, getting him bowled of the last delivery and just keeping his nerves. And he's been fabulous on that front. So they've got that talent. It's just that probably they haven't clicked as a unit. There has been performances from Mohammad Shami. There hasn't in the same game. There wasn't any performance for Ashdeep or, for example, other bowlers. For example, if there was a performance from a batter, there wasn't enough performance in the middle order. For example, the Rajasthan game. You can't. You How on earth can you not score four of the last over when you've got Adrian Markram and Nicholas Pooran? No, tell me. I mean, Adrian Markram
Yes.
and Nicholas Pooran. How on earth can you not get those total? And probably you have to blame yourself. You can't blame anyone else. How can you blame the management? How can you blame the owners? Probably management took the right decision. Adrian Markram, Nicholas Pooran at four. The problem lies with the players, not.
Yeah. I'm glad we got that bit in nice and smooth, just about, just before that internet acted up. But yeah, you rate Bishnoi highly, Bish. You, in fact, even when we did a little recording for the season review for Punjab, you said he'd be one of the players that you'd consider retaining very seriously.
Yeah, because he brings energy. He's a good fielder. He's quick through the air, with good tutelage. And for the moment, he's got Anil Kumble, who is a world-class performer in that setup there. And there was a piece that was done. I think our colleague did a piece, and Gautam knows this, that he gets very much inside the perpendicular, means his bowling arm goes way inside, hence his googly is good. How he straightens that up occasionally to get the leg break to go a little bit more is going to be a key thing, because you don't want him to lose what he has, which is that googly at pace as well, so he can be into the pitch, not give you time to come to him. But I just love everything about him, and I see his future as perhaps a bright one. That's why I'd want to keep him. I don't want him going anywhere else, because he's different, because of that pace, because of his control. And the thing is, he's not afraid of anyone. He does not back down. He's got the attitude of a fierce fast bowler. You can't teach those things.
Yep, absolutely right. He's got one. He's got one more game this season against the Super Kings. If they retain him, good for Punjab and Bishnoi. If they don't, there'll be enough franchises will be hungry for Ravi Bishnoi in their squad. This is where we say thank you to Ian Bishop in that fine Punjab Kings
Thanks,
polo
Prash. See you
team.
soon.
Bish, enjoy yourself. Before I let you go, give me a prediction for the evening game you're going to be covering for the BCCI World Feed. Kolkata or Rajasthan? You think Kolkata are going to win this and close the playoff spots? Or are we still going to go down to the last day with Mumbai having a chance?
As a commentator, I'd like us to go down to the last day and the last over of the last phase, but I just feel KKR are very strong.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks for that, Gautam. I don't need to ask you that now. You're going to be with us tomorrow as well. So let's chat at halftime. Ian Bishop, thank you. Always a pleasure getting your thoughts on Maruti Suzuki presents ESPN Rain for T20 timeout. Be sure to see Bish on our network soon enough. And Gautam Gambhir is going to be with us now as the business end is upon us in the IPL 2021. Let's see how many Chennai Super Kings get in their last batting effort of the league stage.
We call it people technology.